Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
We say to each other, Shana Tova. May you have a good year. We say to each other, Shana Tova u'mituka. May you have a good and sweet new year. These are the same words that we used to greet each other last year at this same time. But when we look back on this year, surely there were sweet and good moments. We welcomed new life into our community. We celebrated with B'nai Mitzvah students and their families. We shared sweet moments under the chuppah and saw so many members of our community move from sickness to health. We experienced countless good and sweet moments in between, the accomplishments completed, the challenges overcome, the big and small victories and celebrations and love. Yet last year, just weeks after we wished each other Shana Tova u'mituka, a good and sweet new year, 11 members of the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, were brutally murdered in the deadliest attack in the history of the Jewish people in the United States. After this tragedy, we came together here, many miles from Pittsburgh. Thousands of Jews and friends from around San Diego packed our campus beyond capacity to mourn, to offer comfort to each other, and take a stand against the hatred that fueled the attack in the first place. And then, just 6 months later, as members of Chabad of Poway were celebrating together the end of Pesach, another terrorist brought bitterness, pain, and murder to the Jewish community. After that tragedy, we came together again. We mourned. We offered each other comfort. But as Tammy Gillies, the regional director of the ADL, said, "It's wonderful that you're here, but I don't want to do these vigils anymore." And of course, there were other events inside and outside our circles that made this year seemingly unbearable. According to the ADL, America in 2018 was home to more anti-Semitic incidents than at any time in recent history. Locally, alongside the tragedy of murder in Poway, we have faced similar, smaller, but increasingly insidious examples of anti-Semitism. Swastikas painted in our neighborhoods, bullet holes at Temple Emmanuel, and hateful words scrawled on a synagogue in Northridge. Our state has faced a series of catastrophic wildfires with no end in sight. Our society grows even coarser with vile political rhetoric, increased examples of racial inequality, treating immigrants worse than criminals, gender discrimination, and worsening climate change. And on a personal level, many of us have suffered painful diagnoses, changes in relationships, and the loss of loved ones. The list goes on. But while every year has painful moments, this year hurt. In conversations with many of you, I have heard you express your anxieties, your fears, your anger, and I am right there with your shock, sadness, despair, and yes, sometimes the desire to withdraw. I understand it. I share it. But when we hurt, Jewish tradition and thought does not linger on why something bad happens, but rather when bad things happen, how we should respond. In fact, the few times that the rabbis have posited a rationale for disaster, they focus on a response that is rooted in the values of love, compassion, and community. When we are angry, when we grieve, when we hurt, we can turn to God in prayer, turn inwards to ourselves, and turn to our family, to our neighbors, and to our community. Judaism gives us three relationships as frames for healing. Ben Adam lamakom, between a person and God. Ben Adam la'atzmo, between a person and themselves. And Ben Adam lechavero, between a person and others. How can we achieve healing? Through a relationship with the divine, through ourselves, and together as a community. Now, I'm aware that each of us has a different relationship with the divine. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but I do want to explore that relationship. After a difficult year like this, or when something disturbing or frightening happens, some of us ask the question, why does God let this happen? I'm guessing you have asked yourself that question at some point this year. I know I have. It's a natural struggle within ourselves. Know that Jewish theology does not have an answer for why God lets bad things happen to people. Instead, we are asked to engage in the theological struggle. After all, our name, Am Yisrael, the people of Yisrael, literally means the people who Yisrael struggle with God. There were moments I struggled with God this year. I struggled to figure out what is God's role and what is my role. Maybe controlling behavior is not why God resides among us and within us. Maybe God's job is not to stop evil, but to teach us goodness. Not to destroy bad behavior, but to inspire us to build kindness. Not to alter inhumanity, but to command us to embrace and nurture tolerance and engage in chesed, compassion. Some injustices in this world are brought about by truly evil people we do not and may never understand. I don't need to give you examples of that. Yet, and make no mistake about it, prayer is one way that our relationship to the divine can help facilitate healing. You're likely most familiar with our prayer for healing, Mishaberach Lecholim. One of the unique characteristics about this prayer is that its core message is surprisingly not of becoming cured, but rather that we attain a refuah shlema, a complete healing, a healing that will make us whole again. The second relationship we can use as we struggle through our pain is Ben Adam la'atzmo, how we relate to ourselves. The High Holy Days are an entire season dedicated to reflection, looking inwards and making the repairs necessary to find healing. There's a question we should all ask ourselves. How has this year changed us? How has this year changed each of us? When disaster strikes, it is even more important to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and not just those around us. I'd like to suggest a tool from my teacher, Melissa Frey, to help facilitate this reflection. At some point in the next 10 days, before Yom Kippur, write a letter to your future self. During these holiest days and holidays, let's take this opportunity to return to ourselves with authenticity and meaning, and take the time to be introspective and reflective by stepping away from our computers and cell phones, making eye contact, and putting pen to paper. Some questions that might spur reflection. How will you imagine the year ahead? What will be different? What will remain the same? And what kind of support will you need to thrive in the next year? Just imagining your future can bring healing to your present. The third relationship we might use to enable healing is Ben Adam Lechavero. How can we heal as a community? The psalmist writes, Hine matovu manaim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is for us to all be together. This year we have been together in this space and in too many others because of painful moments. But there's a brilliance in how the psalmist phrased this verse. Notice, it mentions how good it is for us all to be together. It does not mention why we are gathered. It is not just good for us to gather for happy or sad occasions. It's just good to be together. As we have experienced this year, it is good and it is necessary for us to be together. In some ways, this year was a wake-up call. A common theme I heard in the aftermath of both Pittsburgh and Poway was how much people realized they needed to be in community, and more importantly, the value of being in community. And there's another wake-up call for us all. According to research, 73% of Jewish voters are uncomfortable with what society currently looks like, with most of their fears based in growing anti-Semitism. If that study is even partially true, and I believe that it is, it sets the stage for a foundational moment of disconnect. Professor Stephen Windmuller of Hebrew Union College recently noted, "We have seen a trend in walking away from institutional Jewish life and a weakening of communal links." The question then becomes, are we living at a point where American Jews are thinking about and looking for community and reconnecting with institutional Jewish life because they are concerned that living in isolation, that they will lose a sense of community and wholeness at a time when they are feeling most vulnerable? We as a Beth Israel community set our aspirations high as a caring community. You feel it in the hug we give at Oneg just because we know someone is having a hard time. It's in the myriad ways we galvanize our community to be there for a member who received a cancer diagnosis or for a family navigating a separation. It is in people showing up for shivas and baby namings and weddings. Even our campus is designed with community in mind, the design theme being gather the people. Each of these three relationships, ben adam lemakom, ben adam la'atzmo, and ben adam lachavero, can be a lens we use to process and facilitate healing. Rabbi Aaron Pankin of blessed memory wrote in words found in the Mishkan HaNefesh in our hands today, and his words tinge with irony, as just over a year ago, he was taken away from us in a tragic plane crash. He wrote, "Our actions help us live in such a way that when we suffer life's darkest depredations, we will always have ways of coping with them. Our actions may not change the ultimate outcome one iota, but they alter our attitude, bolster our ability to withstand changes, help us to handle unavoidable misfortunes better, and see life's value amid chaos and dismay." Now, there's one of the details of this past year that went largely unnoticed. And that is, we often referred to the synagogue in Pittsburgh as Tree of Life. But it's not its full name. And really, you can't blame CNN for not being able to fully pronounce Tree of Life or La Simcha. Its full name, or La Simcha, means light to joy. The synagogue's tagline is more light, more life. Our light shines brighter when we are together and we help each other out of the darkness. We like to say, may this year and its troubles be behind us. May this new year be sweet. We do say this, and we do pray this. At the same time, we acknowledge that 5780 also will include difficult moments. Please God, not like 5779. Still, we will need God. We will need our inner resources. And we will need one another to face whatever darkness befalls us in the new year. Then, may each of us and all of us experience more light and more life. May this be a good year, a sweet year. May this be a year of light, of joy, and of life. And may this be a year of more healing than hurt. Shana Tova.